Welcome friends. In this series I play a selected retro console game and then follow that up with a simple question. Is it engaging or is it enraging? Today's game is a console port of the massive arcade hit Street Fighter II for the Nintendo Game Boy and was released in September 1995. Developed by Sun-El and produced by Capcom, the Game Boy was one of many homes for this genre-defining beat-em-up. If you thought Rockstar had an obsession with getting Grand Theft Auto 5 onto any generation of device that could manage it, Capcom made any console or computer from the past 13 years into a home for a Street Fighter II game port, no matter how utterly ridiculous and impractical that home may be. Given half a chance, they would even have a speak and spell edition of the game.
C-W-A-T-S, correct.
Let's have a look at some of those homes, shall we? Here is the near arcade accurate version on the Super Nintendo. This game was a big part of my childhood and is fondly remembered. Firmly stamped into the wood grain of the bottom of the barrel were the Spectrum 128K and Commodore 64 versions of the game. These games were butchered onto systems that were up to 13 years old at this point, and were woefully incapable of anything even close to a Street Fighter II experience. When a game starts with a sentence, due to machine limitations, this version may differ from examples in the manual. You know you're dealing with a steaming pile of software right away. How about we offer up something more honest than that last string of big fat floppy wet lies? I know! Due to insane greed and disregard for our customers, we've cobbled together an eye-burning, mind-melting, unplayable, unrepresentative and unresponsive slideshow for your enjoyment. Have fun with our game after 10 minutes of loading screens, you mindless idiotic plebs! The 8-bit computer ports were nothing short of the customer being a victim of a mugging, but their assailant happened to be wearing a Blanca mask and a Capcom coat at the time. If we do ourselves the gracious service of disregarding the Tiger Electronics handheld version, because of course there had to be one of those unplayable embarrassments as well, in what place between gaming heaven and hell does the Game Boy version sit? Bearing in mind that the Game Boy has a 2.7-inch screen displaying a bold array of 4 shades of green, a third of the face buttons the arcade version provided, and very limited sound generation capabilities, it is understandable that again, every single element of the game had to be severely cut down to stand a chance of being a remotely functional experience. What emerged after the hacking and slashing was over gives an excellent first impression. The graphics certainly feel like the original game, with well-detailed sprites, good backgrounds, a great title screen logo, and mostly intact character endings and post-battle screens. The sound, while heavily downgraded, also represented the original music well, and the custom sound effects are mostly pleasant. However, I am a hands-on kind of gaming nutcase, and all the pretty pixels and funky sounds on Earth mean little to me without the gameplay to back it up. After all, a photo of a nice meal rarely tastes as good as the real thing, unless you sat at McDonald's. So, Street Fighter 2 me old mate, how do you play? This is where the game begins to panic, as a small trickle of urine starts to run down its legs, because the gameplay is a perfect cure for low blood pressure. Although the controls put up a valiant effort by using the same button combinations of its big brother, what the controls produce is never the same thing twice. It's like the game takes a wheel of fortune with the choice of react immediately, react later, or ignore input and spins it for every button press. I wonder what it'll be this time. Moving your jerky, poorly animated and arthritic arm-flinging cretin is a test of teeth-pulling patience with a frame rate that feels like using a flipbook with every second and third page torn out. With these setbacks, the game loses a considerable amount of the fluidity and feel of the original, so feel free to button mash like a maniac to be rewarded with about the same level of success. Now we come to my favourite part of the review that I will simply title Capcom's Cookie Design Choices. We are given a generous roster of 9 iconic characters to choose from. Bafflingly, this is a seemingly random group of 9 characters chosen from the original 12 available in Street Fighter II Champion Edition. Surely having the original 8 from Street Fighter II World Warrior going up against the remaining 4 boss characters would have made far more sense. Instead, we have E. Honda, Dalsim and Vega forming part of the queue at the job centre. Well, at least they kept Sagat from Tylact? The difficulty has an interesting range of challenge that could be summed up as either a gentle stroke across the cheek with a well-manicured hand, or having your face clawed off by Blanca without an atom of anything in between. Simply put, this game is either a pushover or the cheapest son of a bitch you've ever played. Do you fancy a mirror match? Well, for your bewilderment, here is the iconic showdown between Ken of America and Ken from the USA. Which one is which? Who knows? I played the thing and I still can't bloody tell the difference. During the design phase, the meeting at Sun L seemed to veer off on a merry little tangent of its own. They decided to use the remaining valuable cartridge space they have for the Super Game Boy enhancements instead of something completely stupid like, I don't know, adding in the remaining missing characters. Oh look, they've added bits of colour and some nice backgrounds and... Oh, but why? You've already got a SNES, so play the vastly superior version to the game made for the console instead. This is like buying a TV with an 8K resolution so you can watch nothing but reruns of the original film version of King Kong. Seeing as you already own a SNES, playing a 2-player match on a far superior version of the game is as simple as plugging in an additional controller. What, you want to play a crippled version of the game on the move with a friend? Well, no problem. Please provide a second copy of the game, a link cable, a second console and 4 more batteries. All that for 1% more fun? Oh, bargain! Remember though, 1% more than nothing is still nothing. To cap it all off, we can enter survival mode and pit our pixelated rigor mortis riddle nightmare against single rounds of enemies until time stops. The only test of survival with this mode is your sanity, as this section is more tedious than counting the individual grains in a wheelie bin full of sand. What is your reward for reaching your highest round yet? A game over screen, get lost peasant. You don't even have a counter for the number of rounds. Bearing all of this in mind, is this game engaging or enraging? Given all the considerations from earlier, I can easily state that Street Fighter 2 for the Game Boy is an enraging game. While the graphics and sound are initially impressive, the gameplay quickly disintegrates, leaving the tattered shell of the fighting premise and identity of the original arcade game. This game reaches far too high, and falls on its arse as a result. Until next time on Engaging or Enraging, goodbye friends.